Alright, and finally the last of our organic molecules, the last screencast in this series, are the nucleic acids. The basic subunit of nucleic acids is a nucleotide. Here it is right here. Let me write that in for us. The elements, perhaps you can see, perhaps you can't, didn't really show up all that clearly. They all have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, as we know. This nucleotide here has three components, which also have a nitrogen. They have phosphorus as well. Alright, they have this 5-carbon sugar, which is deoxyribose. If you remember, deoxyribose is a monosaccharide. It was an example of a monosaccharide that we talked about. Apart from the deoxyribose, there's also a phosphate group and a nitrogenous base. Those are the three parts of a nucleotide. 5-carbon sugar, phosphate, nitrogenous base. Deoxyribose is the 5-carbon sugar that's in a nucleotide of DNA. As we know, DNA is a nucleic acid, deoxyribonucleic acid. RNA is another nucleic acid, except RNA has ribose as its 5-carbon sugar, which is another monosaccharide that we talked about. If we look over here, this is how the nucleotides come together. And down here, we've highlighted one. You can see how they extend. If we call the shape of DNA the double helix, if you straighten it out, it looks just kind of like a ladder. The frame or the sides of the ladder being the alternating phosphate, sugar, etc. And the rungs extending inward, we have the bases. Alright, and the base pairings go that A with T, C with G, those extending inward. So we have a series of nucleotides coming together. You can see that the different sides run anti-parallel. That in this particular case, the point of the 5-carbon sugar is pointing up, the point of the 5-carbon sugar is pointing down. We'll talk a little bit more about this at a later time. But this is basically how the nucleotides fit together to make the polymer, which is the nucleic acid. Examples of nucleic acids. Well, DNA, RNA, and ATP. We just saw DNA. We know DNA is double helix. It's double-stranded. Here's one strand. Here's the other. This picture here shows the transcription of an mRNA single strand off of a double-stranded DNA. So for types, in your types column, or your types box on your organic compound chart, double-stranded DNA is double-stranded, and single-stranded over here for RNA. Those are our different types, double-stranded and single-stranded. Like I said, here's our transcribe being formed in the nucleus. ATP would be another example, adenosine triphosphate. Why is it called adenosine triphosphate? Well, how many phosphates are there? 1, 2, 3. ATP is the energy currency of your body. Anything that you do costs you ATP to do it. Getting out of bed, your body says, okay, that'll cost you 50,000 ATP. Alright, it's the energy currency of the molecule. And this should look familiar. Ribose, there it is again. That's the same 5-carbon sugar that's in RNA. It's also in ATP. Our 5-carbon sugar, here's a base, and here's a phosphate group. So that's another example of a nucleic acid. Function. Well, let's look at what we've talked about. DNA and RNA. That's genetic material. What's it involved with? It's involved with protein synthesis. It determines what proteins our body makes. What our body's going to be made up of. So protein synthesis. And ATP, we said, is for energy. Is for movement. If you've eaten a meal recently, right now your body's taking the glucose and other nutrients, other lipids from that meal and converting them into ATP so you can use them to do whatever you're doing. Alright, so that's nucleic acids. Short and sweet.